Let's look now at Global Protect. Let's look now at Global Protect with an overview, preparing the firewall for Global Protect, and configurations for Global Protect Portal, Global Protect Gateway, and Global Protect Agents. Global Protect Overview. Global Protect network security for endpoints builds upon familiar mobile security technology, the Remote Access VPN. The Global Protect agent ensures basic levels of remote connectivity. From this base, Global Protect builds more advanced features that transform mobile security. Global Protect expands the boundaries of the physical network while effectively establishing a logical perimeter that encompasses your remote laptop and mobile device users, irrespective of their location. When a remote user logs into the device, Global Protect automatically determines the closest gateway available to the roaming device and establishes a secure connection using strong authentication. Laptop and mobile devices stay connected to the corporate network at all times and are protected as if they never left the corporate campus. Global Protect ensures that the same secure application enablement policies that protect users at the corporate site are enforced for all users, independent of their location. As a result, the operational challenges associated with creating and managing separate policies for corporate firewalls and remote users are eliminated. Global Protect provides policy criteria of applications, users, and content. Global Protect deployment has three major components. Global Protect Portal provides the management functions for your Global Protect infrastructure. Every client connecting to the Global Protect network receives configuration information from the portal. Global Protect Gateways. Gateways provide security enforcement for traffic from Global Protect agents and apps. External gateways provide security enforcement and VPN access for remote users. Internal gateways apply security policy for access to internal sources. Global Protect client software runs on end-user systems and enables access to network resources via the deployed Global Protect portals and gateways. The installer will be in .msi for Windows or .pkg for Mac format. Global Protect also has install agents for iOS, UWP or Universal Windows Platform, Android, and Chromebook devices. The iOS version is available through the Apple App Store. The Android version is available through Google Play. The Global Protect connection sequence is as follows. The Global Protect client on the local system connects to the Global Protect portal for authentication. After authorization is confirmed, the portal sends the client configurations and a list of Global Protect gateways. The client connects to the best gateway, based on SSL response time and local priority, to respond to its connection request. The client communicates with portals and gateways. There is no direct communication among gateways or between gateways and portals. After the client is installed and enabled, it contacts the portal when setting up a connection. Anytime the client contacts the portal authenticates the connections. The scalability and global presence of the AWS computing infrastructure, combined with the VM-series firewalls and Global Protect mobile security, enable you to extend your corporate security policy to your remote users and mobile devices, regardless of their location. Global Protect establishes a secure connection to protect the user from Internet threats and enforces application-based access control policies. Whether the user or network needs access to the Internet, data center, or SaaS applications, the platform provides full protection. A Global Protect implementation requires at least one portal and one gateway. The portal and gateway can be configured on the same firewall. In the simplest configuration, a single firewall is configured to serve gateway and portal services from the same IP address, which provides end users with VPN access to the internal networks with a minimum of configuration. If the gateway and portal share an IP address, only one certificate is needed for the firewall. For larger environments, Global Protect can be configured with multiple gateways. Additional gateways can be used to provide access to multiple protected networks. They also can be used to provide redundancy and performance improvements for end users. Global Protect clients connect directly to a gateway from a list provided by the portal. By default, the chosen gateway is the one that responds fastest to the connection request. To ensure consistent access, multiple gateways often require the networks to be connected to each other by VPN, so that the end user has access to the same data regardless of which gateway they connect to. Although there can always be only one portal, the portal is not a single point of failure. If the firewall that hosts the portal is not reachable, then the clients will use their cached configuration to connect to the gateways. The only limitation of this scenario is that if the portal is down, then new clients cannot be set up, nor can configuration changes be distributed to existing clients. To resolve this issue, either re-establish connection to the portal or redirect clients to a standby portal configured on another firewall. The redirection can be executed by a change in the DNS record of the portal. The portal may provide an IP address and DNS hostname as part of the information passed to the client to determine whether the host is inside or outside the corporate network. The DNS hostname and IP address must correspond to a device whose name can be resolved only by an internal name server. The agent performs a reverse lookup on the IP address. If it receives the expected host name as a response, the agent assumes it is on an internal network and connects to the gateways in the internal list. If no response is received for the lookup, the client connects to the gateways in the external list. If an internal host detection host name address pair is not provided, the client connection attempts to connect to the internal gateways first, then to the external gateways. An internal gateway that is used in conjunction with user ID technology can be used to provide a secure, accurate method of identifying and controlling traffic by user. Internal gateways are useful in sensitive environments where authenticated access to critical resources is required. In this example, internal gateways are used to enforce group-based policies that allow users in the engineering group access to the internal source control and bug databases, and users in the finance group to the CRM applications. All authenticated users have access to internal web resources. HIP profiles configured on the gateway also check each host to ensure compliance with internal maintenance requirements, such as whether the latest security patches and antivirus definitions are installed, whether disk encryption is enabled, or whether the required software is installed. Preparing the firewall for Global Protect. Connectivity between all parts of the Global Protect infrastructure is authenticated using SSL certificates. The portal can act as a certificate authority, or CA, for the system, using a self-signed or imported subordinate issuing a CA certificate within the portal. Or customers can generate certificates using their own CAs. The portal, gateways, and agents must use certificates signed by the same CA. Prior to transferring any information, the client verifies that the gateway is using a server certificate signed by the appropriate CA. The gateway also verifies that the client has a client certificate signed by the appropriate CA. If third parties who may not trust a self-signed CA are to be granted remote access, a certificate issued by a public CA should be used for the portal. The portal includes the public certificate of the CA and the needed client certificate and key as part of the configuration bundle that is sent to the client. Global Protect gateways use the client certificate to authenticate and identify the client. Support is provided for the portal to export the necessary server certificate and key for the gateways. If an external CA is used, support is provided to import the CA certificate along with a server certificate and key for the portals and gateways, and with a client certificate and key for the clients. Portals and gateways do not communicate directly, so the gateway certificates must be imported manually onto those firewalls. Global Protect relies on the same system of authentication server profiles and authentication profiles as PAN-OS does with administration authentication or user ID. 1. Create the authentication server profile. The example is used with LDAP configuration. 2. Attach to an authentication profile. To configure a firewall to authenticate against an existing LDAP server, the LDAP server profile needs to contain the server name, IP address, port, and the proper server settings. Once the server profile is created, create the authentication profile. Set the authentication type to LDAP and select the server profile. In this example, the server profile is PAN Training AD. The Global Protect client page lists the available Global Protect releases. When the agent connects to the portal, the firewall checks the version and installs the currently activated version if it is different from the version that is on the client system. Only the portal provides client information to end users, so this software must be maintained only on the portal firewall. Configuration, Global Protect portal. Most configuration for Global Protect happens on the portal. The portal is responsible for coordinating communications and interaction between all other Global Protect components. Global Protect administrators can set the level of control that end users have over their connections, from a fully locked-down configuration to one where users are allowed to select which gateway they connect to. The Portal Configuration tab manages the way that the portal itself is configured. A Layer 3 capable interface is needed to host the portal functionality. Any environment that requires customized login and help pages for Global Protect can be configured in Device, Response Pages. When you configure a Global Protect portal, you can disable access to the portal login page from a web browser. This action prevents public access to the portal login page and unauthorized attempts to authenticate to the Global Protect portal from a browser. Enablement of this option does not affect access of the Global Protect agents or Global Protect apps to the portal. The Global Protect agents and apps continue to successfully authenticate and connect to the portal to receive their respective configuration updates. General, authentication, and satellite options are similar between gateways and portals. Agent options, however, are different. Clientless VPN options are available only from the portal. The portal agent configurations pertain specifically to the agents that will be hosted on the portal. SSL TLS Service Profile. The authentication profile is used to authenticate users when they first browse to the portal address to authenticate and download the Global Protect agent. This profile object specifies which certificates and protocols will be used in securing the Global Protect portal traffic. Certificate Profile. The client and server certificates are used to authenticate the agent and the portal for mutual identity validation. The certificates are sent to the agent when it first connects to the portal. Configure connection security by selecting the appropriate certificates and authentication profile object. Authentication Profile. Choose an authentication profile or sequence from the scroll list to authenticate access to the gateway. Authentication Message. A customizable message space that will be presented to end users. This can be used to inform them of which credentials should be used for logging into this gateway. This customized message can be up to 50 characters in length. You must specify the root CA or issuing certificates that the Global Protect agent will trust when connecting to a gateway. If a gateway presents a certificate to the agent that was not issued by one of the listed CAs, the agent rejects the handshake and terminates the connection. You can customize the Global Protect connections for different users by creating multiple client configuration profiles. For example, you can configure the portal to handle connections from internal employee desktops and field personnel devices. However, you want different behavior for the two groups of users. If some remote users are using non-standard devices, such as iPads, additional functionality will be needed that traditional laptops do not require. The Internal tab stores the lists of internal gateways that are provided to clients. Clients can connect only to gateways that are defined here within the portal. Clients authenticate and provide HIP reports to all internal gateways, which allows the HIP report information to be used by all internal gateways for policy. If the internal gateways are created with tunnel interfaces, all traffic from the client will be routed through the internal gateway that responds first. For external gateways, the client contacts all of the gateways and establishes a tunnel with the best firewall based on SSL response time and priority value. Priority can be further defined by region. All traffic is sent through this gateway. Select the manual option when you want to allow users to manually connect to or switch to the gateway. The Global Protect agent then will have the option to connect to any external gateway that is configured as a manual selection. When the client connects to the new gateway, the existing tunnel will be disconnected and a new tunnel will be established. Gateways set as manual only are not used during the automatic gateway selection process. The third-party VPN section allows you to define a list of client VPN interfaces that will take precedence over the Global Protect interface. This section is designed for interoperability between Global Protect and other VPN clients. Without this list, Global Protect may clash with routes presented by other clients. Global Protect supports three methods for client connections. On Demand allows users to establish a connection on demand. With this option, the user must explicitly initiate the connection. User Logon automatically establishes a Global Protect client connection after the user logs into their computer. If the use of single sign-on or SSO is selected, the agent uses the Windows credentials of the user to authenticate to the Global Protect portal in a process that is completely transparent to the end users. This method requires the authentication profile to use the same verification service as the login process. For example, Active Directory or Radius. When you configure clientless SSL VPN, remote users can log into the Global Protect portal using a web browser and launch the web applications you publish for the user. Based on users or user groups, you can allow users to access a set of applications that you make available to them or allow them to access additional corporate applications. Applications can be published to users or to user groups for ease of use with clientless VPN. That said, access to those applications is still controlled through independent security policy rules. Rules allowing the application traffic to flow for these remote users must be put in place for the clientless VPN applications to work. Note, you must configure group mapping through Device, User Identification, Group Mapping Settings before you can select the groups.
Hi, my name is Calvin Manggubat. I'm a technical trainer with Palo Alto Networks, and for this session, we'll be talking about clientless VPN. But before we do that, let's do a quick review of how Palo Alto Networks uses virtual private networks. Hi, my name is Calvin Manggubat. I'm a technical trainer with Palo Alto Networks, and for this session, we'll be talking about clientless VPN. But before we do that, let's do a quick review of how Palo Alto Networks uses virtual private networks. Okay. So we support the classic VPN use case, okay, whereby you're working from home, at the airport, in a cafe, on your laptop, and you need to access corporate resources. For example, on your intranet. Now, Palo Alto Networks views virtual private networks as a means of extending the functionality of our next generation firewall. So that way, regardless of where you're at, you will have the benefits of the firewall, even if you're not in your office or corporate headquarters. So, even if you're actually connecting to a website on the intranet, we actually encourage you to send your traffic through the firewall, establish a VPN connection, and then let the firewall connect to these resources. That way, by being in line with traffic, you always get the benefit of security functionality, and your traffic is always analyzed. Now, prior to PAN-OS 8.0, we would achieve this by having a IPsec VPN client such as Global Protect. So Global Protect would establish either an IPsec or SSL VPN tunnel that would force all of your traffic through the firewall and to these resources. Again, that means regardless of where your laptop is at, your firewall will be in line with traffic. It's important to note, however, that the firewall doesn't have to be in your data center or on-premise. This firewall can actually be deployed to the public cloud. So your traffic doesn't have to be backhauled back to the office. It can actually be directed to a firewall that is located closer to wherever the laptop is. Now, the downside to this deployment is you will need to have a VPN client installed. Now, this is not always possible in all situations. For example, if you're using your own device in a BYOD situation, or you are a contractor that's using a laptop to which you don't have administrative privileges, so you will not be able to install the Global Protect client in a timely manner. So for those scenarios, in PAN-OS 8.0, we've introduced the concept of clientless VPN. So how does this work? So in PAN-OS 8.0, we've introduced the concept of the clientless VPN portal. As you define the portal, you can define apps, which will then have corresponding icons within them. And each of these apps would correspond to these applications. So you would log on to the portal via HTTPS. You would authenticate. You would then be able to select one of these applications, and then the firewall will connect to these apps on your behalf. So your traffic still goes through the firewall before it goes through these applications, be it on the web or on your intranet. Depending on how your portal is configured, you can even set it up so that individual users will be able to define their own apps. Okay? So again, as you connect to that app, it goes through the firewall. You have the benefit of next generation firewall protection, analyzing your traffic and protecting you from malicious threats that may emanate from these locations. Now, again, let's summarize. Clientless VPN technology was introduced in 8.0. It allows you to benefit from next generation firewall protection regardless of where you're at by means of a portal. Thank you very much for listening.
Configuration: Global Protect Gateway. Configuration: Global Protect Gateway. The Global Protect Gateway provides the endpoint for the agent's connection. If tunnel mode was enabled, the client will send all traffic through the connected gateway. External gateways require a tunnel. Internal gateways do not require a tunnel, but can be configured to use one. Gateways support split tunneling, though this feature is not recommended for extending the firewall policy with application control and visibility to all mobile users. Gateways enforce the policy that is based on the HIP profiles that are received. Select the Layer 3 capable interface on the firewall that is visible to the client devices. The IP address field will only accept an IP address assigned to the selected interface. General, authentication, and satellite options are similar between gateways and portals. Agent options, however, are different. The gateway agent configuration pertains to the connection between the agents and the gateway. Use the Tunnel Settings tab to configure the tunnel parameters and enable tunneling. The tunnel parameters are required if you are setting up an external gateway. If you are configuring an internal gateway, they are optional. For gateways that require a tunnel connection, go to the Client Connection tab and select Tunnel Mode. Select a tunnel interface from the pull-down list to attach the interface to this gateway. Tunnel mode defaults to IPsec, but it can be configured to SSL. If IPsec is not available, the gateway will default back to SSL. Timeout configurations can be set whether or not the gateway is running tunnel mode. User timeouts can be specified so that inactive connections are automatically closed. The Enable XAuth support option is needed to allow third-party VPN clients to establish IPsec tunnels to the gateway. You can use the group name and group password fields instead of certificates to authenticate third-party VPN clients. Use the Tunnel Settings tab to configure the tunnel parameters and enable tunneling. The tunnel parameters are required if you are setting up an external gateway. If you are configuring an internal gateway, they are optional. For gateways that require a tunnel connection, go to the Client Connection tab and select Tunnel Mode. Select a tunnel interface from the pull-down list to attach the interface to this gateway. Tunnel mode defaults to IPsec, but it can be configured to SSL. If IPsec is not available, the gateway will default back to SSL. Timeout configurations can be set whether or not the gateway is running tunnel mode. User timeouts can be specified so that inactive connections are automatically closed. The Enable XAuth support option is needed to allow third-party VPN clients to establish IPsec tunnels to the gateway. You can use the group name and group password fields instead of certificates to authenticate third-party VPN clients. The network settings options are available only if you have enabled tunnel mode and defined a tunnel interface on the Tunnel Settings tab. Network, Interfaces, Tunnel. The network settings defined here are assigned to the virtual network adapter on the client system when an agent establishes a tunnel with the gateway. The contents of the tab are unavailable otherwise. When the gateway is configured in tunnel mode, it functions as a DHCP server to connected clients. IP addresses and other networking are passed to the client for use during the VPN connection. Split tunneling also is supported. To enable split tunneling, enter the multiple network addresses. The gateway is assigned the IP address for the connection, so it can map the IP address to the user for user ID functionality. An administrator can disable local subnet access at the Global Protect gateway. When local subnet access is disabled, any requests to the local subnet are routed through the tunnel once the Global Protect tunnel is established. The Network Services tab allows you to configure DNS settings that are assigned to the virtual network adapter on the client system when an agent establishes a tunnel with the gateway. In the Inheritance Source field, select a source to propagate the DNS server and other settings from the selected DHCP client or PPOE client interface into the Global Protect agent's configuration. With this setting, all client network configuration, such as DNS servers and WINS servers, is inherited from the configuration of the interface selected in the Inheritance Source field. In the Check Inheritance Source Status field, click the link to display the server settings that are assigned to the client interfaces. Note: options in the Network Services tab are available only if you have enabled Tunnel Mode and defined a tunnel interface on the Tunnel Settings tab. The Network Services tab allows you to configure DNS settings. Split tunneling also is supported. To enable split tunneling, enter the multiple network addresses. The gateway is assigned the IP address for the connection, so it can map the IP address to the user for user ID functionality. An administrator can disable local subnet access at the Global Protect gateway. When local subnet access is disabled, any requests to the local subnet are routed through the tunnel once the Global Protect tunnel is established. The Network Services tab allows you to configure DNS settings that are assigned to the virtual network adapter on the client system when an agent establishes a tunnel with the gateway. In the Inheritance Source field, select a source to propagate the DNS server and other settings from the selected DHCP client or PPOE client interface into the Global Protect agent's configuration. With this setting, all client network configuration, such as DNS servers and WINS servers, is inherited from the configuration of the interface selected in the Inheritance Source field. In the Check Inheritance Source Status field, click the link to display the server settings that are assigned to the client interfaces. Note: options in the Network Services tab are available only if you have enabled Tunnel Mode and defined a tunnel interface on the Tunnel Settings tab. The network For mobile or roaming users, the Global Protect client provides the user mapping information to the firewall directly. In this case, every Global Protect user has an agent or app running on the client that requires the user to enter login credentials for VPN access to the firewall. This login information is then added to the user ID user mapping table on the firewall for visibility and user-based security policy enforcement. Because Global Protect users must authenticate to gain access to the network, the IP address to username mapping is explicitly known. Configuration: Global Protect agents. The Global Protect client software runs on end-user systems and enables access to your network resources via the Global Protect portals and gateways you have deployed. The software is available both in agent form for Windows and Mac OS systems and in app form for mobile devices. The Global Protect agent must be installed before a connection can be established. Users can download the software manually by opening an SSL connection to the portal and authenticating with a username and password. After the user is authenticated, the user is prompted to download the agent software and must choose the appropriate version for their platform. After the agent is installed, the user may have to configure the client software depending on how the Global Protect administrator has configured the environment. End users can be granted varying levels of control over their local agents. The agent needs at least the FQDN or the IP address of the portal to initiate the connection process. If Global Protect is not configured for SSO, a username and password also are needed. For client devices that cannot use the standard client, for example, iPads, Global Protect supports the use of selected third-party VPN clients on a client device. As the Global Protect administrator, you can make Global Protect completely transparent to the end users, which allows them no control over their connections. The interfaces shown in this section will vary based on the specific permissions granted to the users when the portal is configured. Clients that require manual configuration must supply their login information in the Settings tab of the agent. The username and password must match the authentication profile set on the portal. If the session is configured for SSO, the username and password fields can be left blank. After the login information is set, the user can connect to Global Protect by right-clicking the icon in the system tray or launching Global Protect Client. Only actions that users are permitted to run will be displayed to them. By default, the client auto-discovers gateways. Gateways can be marked as manual to allow users to establish a connection within specific networks. Any rediscovery event reverts the agent to auto-discovery mode. If the advanced view option of the client is enabled, viewers can view detailed information about the client. Click the Host State tab to display the HIP information being reported to the gateways. Note, this screen is read-only because there is no option to manually alter the HIP information. Select the Enable XAuth Support option to enable extended authentication or XAuth support in the Global Protect gateway when IPsec is enabled. With XAuth support, third-party IPsec VPN clients that support XAuth, such as the IPsec VPN client on Apple iOS and Android devices and the VPNC client on Linux, can establish a VPN tunnel with a Global Protect gateway. The XAuth option provides remote access from the VPN client to a specific Global Protect gateway. Because XAuth Access provides limited Global Protect functionality, consider using the Global Protect app for simplified access to the full security feature set that Global Protect provides on iOS and Android devices. Selection of XAuth support activates the group name and group password options. If the group name and group password are specified, the first authentication phase requires both parties to use this credential to authenticate. The second phase requires a valid username and password which are identified through the authentication profile configured in the Authentication section. If no group name and group password are defined, the first authentication phase is based on a valid certificate presented by the third-party VPN client. This certificate is then validated through the certificate profile configured in the authentication section. By default, the user is not required to re-authenticate when the key used to establish the IPsec tunnel expires. To require the user to re-authenticate, click the Skip Auth on IKE Rekey option. Selection of XAuth support activates the group name and group password options. If the group name and group password are specified, the first authentication phase requires both parties to use this credential to authenticate. The second phase requires a valid username and password, which are verified through the authentication profile configured in the authentication section. If no group name and group password are defined, the first authentication phase is based on a valid certificate presented by the third-party VPN client. This certificate is then validated through the certificate profile configured in the authentication section. By default, the user is not required to re-authenticate when the key used to establish the IPsec tunnel expires. To require the user to re-authenticate, the Skip Auth on IKE Rekey option. The portal and gateway firewalls maintain information about the connections in the system log. Any interaction between the client and the other components will be logged on the device handling the interaction. Use the search string, subtype EQ Global Protect, to filter for Global Protect entries. Note, this filter alone does not display the authentication events.